All right, let's take you to this now. Members of the Men for Change movement took to the streets of Mthatha in the Eastern Cape to highlight the prevalence of gender-based violence in the OR Tambo District. This on the back of daily cases of women and children being raped and killed. Now, at the same time, elderly women are usually killed for allegedly practicing witchcraft, and young girls are kidnapped for arranged marriages in rural communities. The Men for Change want every man to protect women and children. Now, to speak more on the rise of gender-based violence, femicide, let's now bring in Xolelwa Pona from the Masimanyane Women's Rights International. Xolelwa, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I mean, this is quite a concerning story, especially when you look at who are the victims that are being targeted now, especially when you consider the elderly. What do you believe are the primary factors contributing to this alarming rise in gender-based violence and femicide in the Eastern Cape, particularly in the rural areas?
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me. So one of the reasons that I will place at the top of my list is the economic factors. So Eastern Cape is 80% rural and has high unemployment rate and high underemployment rate. This unfortunately places women at the bottom where they have to depend on men. And again, when it comes to elderly abuse, there is lack of education because we understand that diseases that affect women or older people as they age, that society still does not understand. So I think the witchcraft killings stem from there, where maybe a woman is doing something that is not known by society or that some they deem as unusual, and they'll think that they are practicing witchcraft, because there's really no evidence where we can say this is witchcraft, this is not. But I think it stems from the diseases that older women get as they age, but are not known to society. Because like I said, Eastern Cape is also has high illiteracy rate, where education does not really get to the rural villages, right? Okay, please.
I mean,
and again, I would say,
just on your point, Xolelwa, on that point of witchcraft killings, in a way of an example, others that we are hearing is, of course, women having to pay not to be raped or not to be targets of rape. I mean, these are stories that we are hearing that are emanating from the community. And as far as police are concerned, what are you seeing on that department? I mean, do we have proactive policing? Do we have active citizens also reporting these cases? Because in 2024, you can't be having women still being killed because they're being accused of witchcraft. You can't have women being killed because they're trying to protect their children and they have to pay for that. I mean, it cannot be.
Yes, it cannot be. It's totally unacceptable. And like I said, Eastern Cape is 80% rural, and we have infrastructure issues. That's another problem. Like you mentioned, BT has a police station, a small police station that services large area or many villages, and we can definitely see that they're not able to service all those people. There are not enough resources to service a large area. So we still have a problem with infrastructure, where we still need to see more police stations being built, more police officers being deployed in those villages. And again, society. There's still education that needs to be done on the ground, because yes, we see policies being made, we see bills being signed off by the president, but that does not come down to the rural villages or our communities. And even that information does not necessarily get to the police officers, because you see that the bills that speak nicely, if they're implemented correctly, we will see less crime happening in our communities. But that information does not come to the implementers of the law or the first responders of crime. So yes, there's work that's being done, but there's more that still needs to be done, more action that needs to be done. Education, our communities and to the traditional leaders as well, because we have traditional leaders, but unfortunately that's also a very patriarchal institution that still sees women as lesser than men, men as leaders, etc. So education, I think education is at the center of what needs to be done in society.
And I mean, you mentioned traditional leaders, and as you rightfully say, there's a lot that comes with being a traditional leader in that particular area and some of, the values that they hold. When you speak to, the police as well as traditional leaders, are you getting a sense of support coming from that front? Because you are calling also for provincial men for change, and the police, in as far as Lieutenant General Mene, to also be part of this voice that calls for a change in societal attitudes towards women, and of course to strengthen, just a community response.
Okay, when it comes to traditional leaders, there is a little bit of resistance there because I mean, it's a guarded space where women are unable to infiltrate in. So I think this also calls for an opportunity for organizations to work together, like Men for Change, to work with other organizations to be able to then enter that space, because we as women who are feeling the pinch, who are being abused, are not able to enter that space, are struggling to actually enter and train traditional leaders and actually see them that these are toxic social norms that needs to be done away. This is patriarchy, and this is how it needs to be deconstructed without them feeling emasculated. I can tell you right now, it's still very difficult to work with traditional leaders, but there are those who are willing to work with us, who have been working with us, but it's still largely difficult.
Imagine having to navigate that terrain while women and children are being killed. But Xolelwa, thank you so much for your time. Of course, that's all the time we have for this afternoon. A very difficult conversation there in as far as what is happening in the Eastern Cape in as far as GBV is concerned.